What's going on, guys? Welcome to From the Grave Podcast, episode 121. I'm your host, Scott Russell. Check the website for merch, right meow, fromthegraveco.com, fromthegraveco.com. A ton of new merch on the site. We're having fun with it. We're making one-on-one limited editions by yours truly. This has been a very real episode, a very personal episode to me. We had a listener send in a question on TikTok. What we do is we talk about emotional pain and discomfort and not running from our feelings, but facing them, experiencing past versions of ourselves that we weren't so fond of, and learning how to love on those past versions, and what we see in other people. Can we love on that version of them? Or if we see something great in another person, do we have the ability to become that? Very, very good episode. I enjoyed it very much. And Sam, thank you for sending your question in. If you want to get involved with the podcast, send a question in, send a voice recording in, go to fromthegravepodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We love when you guys send memos in, because I don't always know what the fuck to talk about. So it helps me, and we have a more interactive play on things. Make sure you like and smash that subscribe button. And thank you guys for joining us, and enjoy this episode 121.
What's the eternal principle?
But one.
Which is?
Well, we call it God, but that personifies it.
Saks fifth, 7,000 popping rugby tags, master's level, graduated, then I double back.
What an idiot. Are you recording? Just hit record.
Yeah. I'm shopping for the Lexus with the red light. Texting my accountant. Far cry from Chevy's getting wrecked and then pounded. Hop against to get mounted. Wetter than a fountain. Pair the Louis with the golf and put the Fendi fleece around it. Drive slow. I see 5-0 on the side streets. I could show the hours I committed like a time sheet. Main South. Battered and assaulted, that's a crime spree. Hundreds in a knot, we open bottles like a wine key. My cash up. I'm adding and subtracting like the math club. Bagging like a sack lunch. Sneaking to the villa for tequila and a back rub. Truffles on the steak and meditation in the bathtub. Old cheese, I left it out, so now it's dry breathe. Trap is 17 with scattered needles like a pine tree. Activist of Mali turned Dasani to a high C. Young star, the ties can join us or Siamese.
Hey, and that's okay though. Wet them up like Keiko's. Niggas off this Play-Doh, but nah, we don't play though. Live from the bottom, see no
Matthew 508. Banger. Drew on the beats. Way too hype with the Roadcaster. Epi 121. We're recording. Yeah. All right. Epi 121. What is really good, guys? What is really good? If you haven't yet, make sure you check the website, fromthegraveco.com. Merch is up there. We're live. We're having fun. We're making one-on-one pieces. Let's see what we got going on here. So some people have been sending in. I put up a post on TikTok about sending in some questions that you would want answered and whatnot on the podcast, which is fucking incredible, because most of the time I don't know what the hell to talk about. And I feel like I'm always saying the same shit, which is all right. I guess maybe not. You can decide that. So anyways, For Sure Sam sent in this question. What do you do to get emotional and mental relief when going through a trauma, when alcohol and drugs are no longer an option? For Sure Sam, that's her TikTok, says, what do you do to get emotional and mental relief when going through a trauma, when alcohol and drugs are no longer an option? Well, I would say trying to get relief is the issue. Trying to get relief is the issue. Feel the feelings, feel the emotions, and pay no attention to the thoughts surrounding them. Really easy and pretty and cute to say. Not easy in the taking, not easy in the doing. So, I guess I'll relate to some of my experiences. Emotional and mental, we'll say, I mean, you're using the word trauma, which I will say is just going through, we could say going through unpleasant emotional or mental feelings, if you will. I had a lot of that in my life. And the first issue is resisting it and wishing that it wasn't there. So I have a couple voices, right? One is, oh shit, I'm going through this thing, right? This doesn't feel good. The second voice is the most important voice, which is most important voice to be addressed, which is, I don't like this and this needs to go away. This should be different. I shouldn't be experiencing this right now. I wish this didn't have to be me. This is too much. I just want to run and hide. This narration around sensitivity to uncomfortable feelings and emotions. This dude, Father Martin, says that feelings and emotions are the things we have the most of and know the least about. The longer I stay sober, the longer I commit to this spiritual way of life, the more I get involved with the intimacy of myself, all my feelings, my emotions, my uncertainties, my self-doubt, etc. The things that have been rolling around inside of me for years on end that have never truly been addressed. We could say trauma, right? I think that addiction is all trauma. I think it is a valiant attempt to experience radical relief in an instant. And what creates an addict and an alcoholic is when somebody does drugs, drinks alcohol, gets drunk, and there is a relief, a monumental relief, a spiritual experience of relief, that person will inadvertently turn their life over to that relief because that's what they've been seeking from the jump. There has been an internal race to find escape, if you will. So we may have made the conscious choice to pick up a drug or pick up a drink, but when it touches and pacifies this trauma going on within us, there is a line that is crossed where, for me, I turn my life over to drugs and alcohol because I pretty much had to. That there was some type of relief that happened that made it torturous to say, I'm not going to do this again. To go back to a sober state of being in my own skin because I just wasn't comfortable there. There was a constant feeling of threat of safety, and I didn't realize that it was possible to achieve relief from that until I started swallowing pills and doing everything else under the sun. And so seeking that relief is what drowned my life in a sea of sorrow, washes you up on the shore, and you either face the fact that the problem is running from emotional discomfort, or you don't. So the question that Sam posed, which is, how do you find relief from this uncomfortability of emotion or feelings when you don't have the chance or the option to drink and drug anymore? Well, that question is kind of the issue. Is if what brought me in the door was seeking relief, then to stay in the room that I walked into, I can't have that same script within me. I can't be devoted to running from emotional trauma. I mean, that's a very heavy word. My focus and my commitment can't be on experiencing relief in the negative sense. Relief comes from facing the things that I want to run from. Relief comes from facing the things that I want to run from. There are going to be things in your life that are going to constantly sit on your shoulder and demand to be faced until you face them. And if you're living in a way that you are so sensitive to facing them, you're never going to step into your full potential. You're never going to transcend and go where you are not. And to become a new person, you have to face the things that are begging you to face them and go where you are not, to experience this new individual. So the relief that you want is right where you don't want it to be, always and forever. This has been my experience. The relief that you truly want is always where you don't want to go the most. I used to mentor this guy back in New York, and he was a good old alcoholic. I mean, just slugging down bottles of vodka, right? Great guy. And he was a yoga guy. He loved yoga. And he would always talk about, all of the light and spirituality that came out on that yoga mat, et cetera, et cetera. Now, yoga is not a bad thing in and of itself. He wanted his spiritual experience to be on the yoga mat. This guy was an alcoholic. He wanted his experience to be on the yoga mat so much that every time he left the yoga studio, he would always end up with a bottle in his hand. He didn't want to look at the character that needed to drink. He wanted to find the person that could do yoga, do a warrior pose, and then have that torture just slip away. He died of alcoholism. And I'm talking about him with respect, right? The ego is always going to want some type of relief other than facing it, other than looking at it. It does not want to be faced. When the ego is challenged, it's faced, it's pulled out from the shadows, brought into the light, and looked at squarely, and we confront it, it loses its power and it dies. It can't continue on after that if we insist upon addressing its narration and saying, hey, perhaps you are the false self. It wants to be right back here saying, hey, In order to get away from this narration, you got to go get relief here, and here. Until we challenge that and say, maybe I don't, I am going to be in a forever chase of trying to grasp things outside of myself, pull them into me in order to pacify that ego. Now, these things that we do chase do work to some degree. Sex, money, relationships, being a savage on dating apps, more tattoos, eating like shit, endless hours of TV. These things do bring relief, but never true relief. They pacify those emotionally uncomfortable things for a little bit. They just throw a pacifier in the baby's mouth. Oh my God, I didn't even really, my little sister growing up, she was in love with her pacifier. Anytime she started crying, where's her pacifier, But at some point, she would always spit it back out and start crying again. It never was permanent relief. And at some point, in order for her to grow up, she had to part ways from the pacifier. The relief is on the inside. The relief is right where you don't want to go the most. And it's super fucking annoying. I get that. But if you want to change and grow as an individual, you're going to have to face these emotionally uncomfortable things. Because if you insist upon running from them, that is addiction. So if that's the script that comes in, we get into the door with, and then we hold on to that script, we're living in an addictive, an alcoholic way. And we can't expect much things to change if we're still fanning that script out in our lives. So, you may get into relationship after relationship and still get confronted with the same problem, and the relationship doesn't work. And then you get a tattoo and another tattoo, and then you get over that, and then you need another one. Or you make another check, and that felt really good for about a week until you need another check, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just this forever chase, It's this forever chase and this forever race, and then you're going around the track, right, in NASCAR, and I think they wave like the checkered flag for the finish line, and then some other colored flags based on laps, right? And you always think that you're going to get to that checkered flag, and you're like, this one's it, and you come around the bend, not the checkered flag, and you're like, maybe next lap. I know this has got to be it. I've done 20 laps, and it's a 20-lap race. That's it, because I said it was a 20-lap race. You're waiting for that checkered flag. Nope, got you again. Wasn't a checkered flag. Until you go onto that pit stop and take a second and say, do I have to be in this race? Realize there's no one in the crowd. No one's cheering for you. And by the way, there's no other cars you're racing against besides your own thoughts. You have to take a step back and say, do I have to be in this race? Because there is no checkered flag. There's no certification. There's never any graduation. There's just process-oriented growth. Even like when I got into therapy like 3.5 years ago, everything got challenged. Everything that I thought I knew got challenged. My narration of myself got challenged. How I wanted things to be, meeting my own needs. I wanted others to meet my own needs. I wanted you to give me the approval that I truly sought internally. If I need your approval to be okay, I'm in bondage to you. And I'm always going to need you to tell me what to do, then do it to go, oh, wait, I'm okay. I did exactly what this person needed of me. I have their approval. An attaboy or a good job or a good girl, whatever the case may be. So we'll look at it this way. I grew up without a father, right? My father was my mom and my father had me when they were 19 years old, very, very young. And my father was a Marine, and he was basically like, listen, I'm going to do this Marine thing. I can't do it. So he was never a part of my life. So I always had this, without realizing it, an internal pull to have another man show me how to live. And this really started to develop in a very sneaky way when I got older. So I used to work on a military base. I didn't serve. I was a civilian contractor on this military base, and there was a ton of tradesmen, right? So we would take care of the base. Let's say everyone on the Air Guard base was deployed. We would be there, pavements and grounds and carpentry and plumbing and electrical and all that stuff. So there was a lot of guys who, had their shit together. I met a lot of dope people, learned a lot of shit, just practiced a lot of different trades, learned some things that I pretty much can't remember now, but it was really fun, right? And I was in this arena where I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know how to operate heavy equipment. I didn't know how to pour concrete. I didn't know how to frame things. I didn't know anything about plumbing or HVAC. But I stood next to these guys who were very established in their fields. And I was moving around in life like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know which way to go. And so let's say I really vibed with one of these guys, or we had a good day and he was showing me some shit that I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can't believe I'm learning this. And let's say this guy, Joe, who's a carpenter. I have a good day with Joe. I was a maintenance assistant. So I was like, on the boots ground for some of these guys, whatever they needed. I was the young cat, right? So let's say I have a good day with this carpenter, Joe. He shows me how to frame some stuff, build some things from scratch. I'm like, this is dope. And then I'm like, maybe I should be a contractor like Joe. If I live like Joe lives, like this guy's really cool. Maybe I should do what he did. Oh, and he's a retired, he was an Air Force guy. Maybe I should join the Air Force, right? I had no idea who I was, and that scared the shit out of me because I had no faith and no foundation in life. So if I had a good day with Joe and, we had a good relationship going, he was showing me some things and I was vibing out on him like, this is really cool. I want to be like Joe. And so I would attach to these other men because what I really wanted is another man to show me how to be a man, I guess, or what it looked like to grow up or to take on a trade or to, carve your own path or whatever. I had this internal mechanism within me that really wanted that, but I wasn't aware of it. And so let's say Monday I had that good day with Joe and I want to be a carpenter, right? And then the next day, hanging out with one of the heavy equipment operators, and his name is Paul. And this dude was in the Army, and then he got into operating on heavy equipment and being in pavements and grounds. I'm like, oh, this shit's so cool. Like I'm pouring concrete, plowing snow. I'm doing all this. This is so cool. This guy's great. I like what he did. He's got a boat now. He retired and he's got X amount of dollars. And man, I think I want to do this now. And so I would take after that guy. And then Wednesday I would work with a plumber named, Mike or whatever. And I would have a really good, you follow what I'm saying? So the issue wasn't with these other men. The issue was with this mechanism within me. And so when I got into therapy, I started to understand, and I was shown my own ears and started to see this mechanism, right? I needed others to meet my needs. I needed others to give me approval. And this was out of the fear of, well, the reality was I didn't know who I was. The fear was that scared the shit out of me, and that wasn't okay with me. So every day, without realizing it, this mechanism or this hurt and immature ego was looking for a painting to say, hey, I should go live my life this way. And if I live my life this way, then I would arrive and I would be more okay in my own skin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a very uncomfortable emotion to face. This was a very uncomfortable mechanism to look at within me, because then this started to shed light on how I was operating in an unhealthy way in my relationships with other people and other men. Now I'm not just friends with these guys. I'm almost like attaching to them in a self-seeking manner based on fear. So there's not much authenticity in that relationship. And if I'm needy in a relationship, that pushes people away. And that's who I was. It's in facing these uncomfortable feelings that you begin to get exposed to what you need to work on. And what I needed to work on was meeting my own needs and developing self-approval. And this came with accepting that I don't really know who I am right now, but that had to start being okay with me before it could begin to be worked on. So once I started to get faced with the reality that I didn't know who I was, and I started to go to a higher power or life or God and say, hey, help me to accept this. Show me what it means to be a guy that is this age, maybe didn't really get the direction he wanted in life and doesn't know who he is. Show me how to move around and let that be okay with me. So once I started to do that, really cool things started to present themselves. And I just started to follow these things, meaning like FTG and creativity and different jobs that I've never been in before. And I didn't really follow anybody else in there. I just went out there and kind of tried it. I just went out my door and started to try new things and get results from life. So I started to knock on the door and ask myself, hey, am I going to like this? I started to listen to my own intuition and my integrity and make decisions and choices based on myself and just go try it out. I didn't take others' words for it. Oh, hey, you would really like this. You should give this a try. Maybe I will, maybe I fucking won't. So I started to meet my own needs by just trying things out. And once you begin to develop this self-approval of just moving through the world the way you feel motivated to move through the world, and you face these uncomfortable feelings, on the other side of that is a man that's walking around in self-approval, not needy. And as you take that man and you move him through life, you bring other relationships, authenticity, new jobs, new purpose, new passion into life, because now you're not walking around resisting this uncertainty that you have in your life. The uncertainty becomes okay. And so now you're standing in your bliss, you're standing in your purpose. And when you do that, alignment happens and you start to follow that charm or that moment of alignment, if you will.
I had a quick question about something you're talking about right now. So your journey mirrors my own in a sense that, like, I feel now that I'm a little bit emotionally healthier, that I grew up being a very needy person. And it's only in the last few months, as I've become a more self-accepting person, a more mentally healthy person, that I've noticed that when you are a mentally healthy person, for the most part, when someone else is needy, it pervades everything that person does. And it can be very hard to be around if you are not similarly needy. Is that something you found in developing this sense of self and developing this sense of meeting your own needs?
Yeah, 100%. There is nothing. Listen, I mean, being needy pushes people away that are in that place of self-approval, okayness, meeting their own needs. And it's this needy small self. And that's okay. Like, I had to be that. I had to be that lowest version of myself to dismantle him and become a new version. Now, I can really resent and not accept lovingly that past needy version of myself. We could look at him as a younger brother. If I could, like, I think about some of the episodes I did in the beginning of this podcast 4 years ago, and I fucking cringe, right? Like, but I have to look at that version of myself with loving glasses on and say, hey, that was just a part of me. It's like that saying, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I can't blame myself for the things I've done in the past because of that saying, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I was just at that level of consciousness. That's how I responded. That's what I said. That's how I acted. That's what I did in this relationship. This is why amends are part of the deal, because at that level of where we were at, we responded in certain ways and perhaps brought harm. That's why we go back out into the world and make amends. But with needy people, it doesn't mean I have to accept needy people into my life. But if there's people that are needy and I'm being dismissive and rude and lack compassion for them, I am not loving on my past self. I am not being understanding. So the way we can combat this, if you will, is to think about what I would have wanted how I would have wanted somebody to guide me when I was that needy version of myself. If I had a spiritual man in my life at that time, how would he have helped me? And we can start to become these silent teachers. Now, it doesn't mean I need to like go hang out with needy people, but if I'm, if they're in the circle or they're at your work or, whatever in a friend group, it doesn't mean that I have to be rude, but I can become a silent teacher and start to like plant seeds and inspire hope and say things like, again, kind of indirectly teaching, oh, dude, man, I remember like years ago, I just didn't know who I was and that scared the shit out of me. And, when I started to accept that I didn't know who I was, that's when I found him out. People's eyes like, oh man, dude, same thing here. We know this, right? We know this because we see past versions of ourselves. We can see it on others if we can live it, if we've lived it before. So yeah, I think that we're always presented with past versions of ourselves. And the goal for me has been learning how to love on that person of myself because he is part of me. There's a very sensitive person within me. And he needs to be addressed. One of the, so yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. Everyone is just a mirror. It's just a mirror of things we've gone through, a mirror of things that we can become. And let's look at it on the other side, right? They say you never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you want to know who you're going to be in 5 years, show me who your friends are. I 1000% agree with that. So if you know somebody in your life and this person radiates everything you want to be, let's say they're disciplined, financially secure, creative, intelligent, ambitious, confident, right? All these things that I think are just incredible. If you see that in another person, you can build it within yourself. If you see it within another person, you can build it within yourself. If you have eyes to see, let them see. This is scripture. This is what they mean. If you have the ability to see it and conceive it and hear it, you have the ability to work that into your consciousness and to become that new person. If you couldn't see it, it wouldn't even be a possibility. It wouldn't be in the realm of your consciousness. It wouldn't be in your fucking view. If you're driving a car and you see a spot in the road or you see a spot in a neighborhood close by, if you see it, you can drive to it. If you couldn't see it, you will never get there. It's not possible because you can't see it. So on the other side of that neediness, if you can see beauty and compassion and glory and confidence and self-approval and love and discipline, all these beautiful things, if you can see it in another person, if you can see it in the spirit of a human, now it's just up to you to grasp that and start to work that into your life. So this is the benefit of human relationships, is we get to see past versions of ourselves and we get to see future versions of yourself. And then you can take your pick. You don't resist the one and you don't cling to the other. The quickest way, the surest way to halt growth is to resent and not love on past versions of yourself. These people, these past versions of ourselves, they need to be looked at and loved on. You can do writing. You can do some of the things I've done that I've learned in therapy, as this is like kind of inner child stuff. Whatever your less dominant hand is, that's the voice of that needy person that is still within you or whatever. And your dominant hand is the voice of your adult self, your here right now self. And so you can begin to write to this guy or this girl and say, what was it you needed? What was it that you still need right now? How can I be there for you right here, right now? How can I be this? How can I give this version of myself to that past version of myself that needed this current self really badly? This is all inner child shit. I used to think this inner child stuff was so fucking corny. For me, that's been everything. Loving on past versions of myself. And hopefully 5 years from now, I'll need to write to this current version of myself. Because if I'm not a hypocrite to a certain degree, when I grow 5 years, then I'm not growing. If I'm not a hypocrite to my past self 5 years from now, aside from basic principles, that means I'm not growing. I always want to get closer and closer to the reality of God or life or conscious or whatever, to be like, oh shit, I can't believe I said that on episode 121 4 years ago. Oh my God, I was such a fucking idiot. So I don't know. In reference to Sam and your question, and thank you for sending it in, the answer is always going to be right where we don't want to go. I promise you that. Don't seek relief outside of these. Don't seek relief from these feelings, from these emotions. Find the pure, formidable relief that's right in the middle of them. Feel the feelings, feel the emotions, attempt to pay no attention to the thoughts surrounding them. We got to open up and feel these feelings, and sometimes let the anxiety be there, let the depression be there, and not pay attention to that second voice that says, that's not okay. It's not okay that you're nervous right now. And it's like, who the fuck says it's not okay? Fuck that voice, man. We need to start loving on ourselves. When I resist the reality of what I am right now in this moment, I am torn apart and divided against myself. And that's no way to live. But when we're there, that can be the launching pad into a new person, developing a new person. So thank you for sending your question in, Sam. Guys, if you want to send a question or a topic or a voice recording in and get involved with us like this, I fucking love it. Please keep doing it. You can hit us up on TikTok. You can hit us up on Instagram. The handle is all the same, From the Grave Podcast. Or you can email us, which is fromthegravepodcast@gmail.com. Send in a voice memo. send in a suggestion for a guest that you want on. And then also make sure you check the website for new merch. We got these new Love, Always Love shirts, which has been appropriate for the message we're talking about right now. FromTheGraveCO.com, FromTheGraveCo.com, FromTheGraveCO.com. Always making one-on-one pieces, tie-dyes, painted, bleach, all that stuff, and having fun. Anyways, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thanks for spending some time with us. And peace. That's episode 121.